Okay, we'll give it a minute. Get some people to hop on. I think I did click on a little bit early today. So go ahead and have people join. And then we're going to be talking about the energy of anxiety and do an energy clearing for the group, for those who will be hopping on. So welcome to those who are able to join live and on the replay. All this information is going to be available to watch later. So if you do have to hop off at any time, feel free to come back. And please, hi Ryan, thank you for joining. And definitely share this, for anyone who you know of that might need some information on the energy of anxiety. So, because that's what we're going to be clearing through today. And for those of you who have worked with me before, have done energy clearings with me, you know how that makes a really, really big difference. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. I know people tend to kind of trickle in a little bit later on, but that's okay. So the definition of anxiety, because I just wanted to see if anything has changed with that. And I find it really interesting, the definition that I was able to pull up, that what it actually referenced, because it says that it's intense, excessive, and persistent worry and fear about everyday situations. So I find that interesting because usually we don't necessarily think about it that way, because with the timeline that we're in right now, where there's so much going on in the world, and it's not just small things, right? There's big issues that we're dealing with, that when it comes to anxiety, it has become, these big things have become an everyday thing that we're either thinking about and giving our energy towards. And so when it comes to anxiety, there's a lot of neuroscience information that's really, really good, that's coming, that has been out, and it continues to come out, with how the brain works and how that produces this cascade of feelings that we experience when it comes to anxious thoughts. So you know that everything that I do is from an energetic perspective, right? That's really my niche. That's what I do. Is I coach, I teach people on how to manage their energy. And anxiety is a really big thing that people approach me about. So again, you're going to hear me say this over and over. Our energy includes the thoughts that we think, right? Because that's what produces the feelings that we have. The feelings that we have from whatever it is that we're thinking about is simply chemicals, right? The chemicals that we naturally produce as a result, and which lasts for a particular period of time. And what happens then is that once that feeling occurs, now we have more thoughts that are equivalent to the thought that we originally had, and that produces more of the feeling. And we end up in this loop of anxiety, then, that now we have taken it minutes, hours into the day, or it seems to occur every single day. Okay, so this is what we're addressing, is the mundane, the everyday things that can end up really sapping our energy and the life out of us. And so the first thing that I want you to remember, besides how, our anxious thoughts is the energy that we're emitting, is that anxiety is on the spectrum of fear. So if you kind of think where there's a scale, right, one end to the other, anxiety is, what it starts with is really just more like concern and worry on one end of the spectrum. And then in different varying degrees of anxiety or somewhere in the middle. And on the end of that spectrum of fear, the other side is really more fright and terror, right? Which is, we don't necessarily experience that, if ever, right? But some of us might have, but that's more really the extreme end of the spectrum. So remember that anxiety, even though we may not associate it as fear, that's what it really is. Okay. And it's on the spectrum of fear. So the second point that I want to bring out then is the very first thing that happens then when we become anxious is that it literally pulls our spirit, ourselves, essentially our own essence, out of the physical body. Okay, so let me go ahead and share this with you, because if you've never seen this before, then I want you to be able to have a visual then of our basic energy field. Now on Instagram, you're not going to be able to see this. If you hop onto my YouTube or Facebook, you will. But remember that your energy is not just within your physical body. It actually falls outside too. And that's really who you are. It's not just your skin, your bones, and the whole 3D part, but your energy comes out on average about arm's length from one end to the other around you. Okay. And so with that, that's your energy. What comprises that is everything that you think, you feel, your level of consciousness, the ideas that you have. That's what's kind of, that's what you're carrying around with you when people meet you, right? And they sense your energy, what you're thinking and feeling. That's what they have run into. Okay. So when you are fearful, and your whole field is full of either anxious thoughts, the things that you're creating up in your imagination, all those things, then that literally can take you, because now your energy is focused on something that you're conjuring up in your mind, right? So all of that can get pulled out partially out of your body, and to whatever degree that is. Okay, so it's really important to remember that, because we're going to talk about why that's actually important. So in essence, you're merely occupying only part of your body when you're in anxiety all the time. Okay, when you're safe, you want to feel like you want to be able to occupy your physical body. You feel safe within your body. And it's interesting because I have a number of clients who they actually don't feel that way. They don't necessarily feel like they're safe in their body, or wherever it is that they are. And if you're anxious, most likely you don't feel safe, period. Okay, you may not necessarily think that, but your body feels that because of the physiological response. So what is the big deal then of not being fully within your body? Why is that even such why is this even a concern to not be in your body? So the very first thing is that you're not fully present. So if you've ever spoken to someone, or maybe you might recognize this within yourself if you've been anxious lately, which with all the retrogrades, a lot of people have been. But if you are anxious and you're trying to carry on a conversation, you're probably not fully present. Okay. You probably are, you're out here, you might be looking at somebody, but you're not fully there. Okay. So what's with that? What's the big deal with that? Well, one is it's going to be hard for you to make good decisions. Okay, if your energy is not fully in, you're not going to be able to access all of your senses, all the information that you're receiving, which leads me to point number two, is you're not going to be able to access all your intuition. It's hard to make really good decisions just purely, using your cognitive abilities. But if you can't access what your body is feeling, your intuition, due to the anxiety, it's going to be hard to make good decisions. Now, if you're a very empathic individual, or HSP, a highly sensitive person, which majority of my clients are, your intuition is everything. So if you're anxious, it's really going to be hard for you to determine what's yours, what's not, what's previous trauma, and what's currently going on. So when I say what's yours or what's not, what I'm actually referring to is understanding that, remember what we said, what's in your field. If you're actually absorbing other people's energies, emotional energies in particular, in your field, and then you think that that's yours to deal with when it's really not. You could just be clearing that out of your space. So it's really important to understand that when you, especially if you're an empathic individual, highly sensitive person, that if you are experiencing anxiety a lot, it's a really good idea to do your own healing. So that way you can understand what your baseline is and if you have actually been absorbing other people's energy. Okay, because if you have been absorbing other people's energy and you're feeling anxious, you might just be picking up on what someone else is anxious about, and it's making you feel something physically. Okay, so that's the other point when it comes to being anxious and your essence being pulled out of your body. So again, if you can't make good decisions, you are more prone to making mistakes as well. You probably have noticed that if you have been anxious, for any extended period of time, you might have noticed that you forget things, you miss things. It could even mean a very serious situation like life or death. If you're not paying attention, you're in your head, you can run a red light. I've done that before. So these are the things of why it's a big deal if you're not fully in your body. So what are we talking about here? We're talking about not being fully grounded. Okay. Now, there's a lot of really good information on being grounded. Most likely, if you're watching this, you have heard of the importance of being grounded already. So, when it comes to being grounded, you probably have heard of the techniques of going out to nature, right? Being barefoot on the grass, the dirt, on the beach, right? Those things are really good because of the negative ions, right? But what if you do not have access to being outside in nature? How are you going to ground yourself? Well, when I work with my clients, I talk about energetic techniques to be able to do this. And in my meditative clearings, which we're going to be doing here shortly, I ground in there too. So the reason why that works is because the fact that you're using your imagination, your thoughts, your own thoughts to create that, it's real and it's actually happening. So, one energetic technique is simply doing that. In my empath workshop years ago, I had people stand up and imagine that they're sending a grounding cord down from their root chakra or right at the perineal area into the ground. And then we tested it out. And this is something that I do on my personal sessions too, or in my classes, where people take turns like kind of pushing each other at the shoulders. And when they're ungrounded, they can feel and you can actually see it that they kind of are pushed back, right? They're a little bit off balance. Once you ground, whether you're using your imagination or a different technique, and it takes seconds to do, you retest it again and the person doesn't budge. So it's really quite interesting. So one of the techniques that I can do, or that you can do, besides you just imagining like sitting or standing and imagining a grounding cord going down into the center of the earth, you can also, when you're sitting with your legs uncrossed, cross your arms. And this technique, I got from a healer friend, in the Midwest. So, so this is a really, really great one too. Okay, so shout out to Allison. Okay, so cross your arms like this, and then you're going to put opposite hand to opposite knee, and you're going to inhale. On the exhale, what you would do is imagine quicksand going down from your legs into the earth. Okay, so inhale with your arms crossed, opposite hand to opposite knee. Exhale, quicksand down, and imagine that going down into the earth. One more time. Inhale, and quicksand down, and you're grounded. Okay, if you wanted to validate that for yourself, then do the push test. So before you ground, have someone, you just stand shoulder width apart, have someone push you, do the grounding technique, and then have the person push you again and see how solid you are. People always get tripped out by this test because they're amazed at how fast that works. Okay. And there's a lot more that I could say about that, but just understand that energetically grounding helps to bring you back into your body where you can access not just all of your physical senses, but your intuitive senses too. So let's say that you are, a light worker. Let's say that that you do a lot of spiritual work with other people. Okay, it's so interesting because about 50% of healers, psychics, any other light worker tend to be ungrounded. So it's a practice that I do, because I do the clearings on myself every single day. And that is something that you have to do. Otherwise, it's going to be really, really hard to be able to receive the information, right? And be able to filter that appropriately, especially if you're filtering information for other people. Okay, you don't want to do a disservice for others. So grounding is the number one foundational technique for energy work. Okay, I'm going to say it again. Grounding is the number one foundational technique for energy work. If you're going to build your repertoire of energetic skills, okay, of your just anything that you're ever going to do in the future, you need to ground. Okay. In the beginning, when I started to do Reiki, I wasn't grounded very much. And I would feel, especially after doing distance sessions, I would feel like I was floating. I would feel like I was just not fully there. I felt really foggy. I just felt completely out of it. And so the thing is, if you're anxious and you're adding to that, because let's say, you are doing work with other people, that's going to be an issue. Okay. Over time, it's going to be an issue for you. So make sure that especially if you're feeling a lot of anxiety, you need to ground. If you need to do both, if you need to go out in nature and ground, then do that. If you need to do physical activity to bring you back into your body, then do that. But also understand the power that you have just with your energy alone to be able to ground, because you may not have access to that all the time, or in a particular moment that let's say you're triggered and you're feeling the anxiety come up, but you're not out in nature, right? So you need to be able to know what tools to use. And so the one that I just explained to you, perfect one to use, and no one's even going to notice that you're doing it. Okay, so let's do the energy clearing around anxiety. A lot of my clients who have done the energy clearing with me, whether it's depression or anxiety, because depression and anxiety tend to be sister cousins, that there's such a dramatic difference even after just doing one clearing. So, and that's because there tends to be other energies that oppress upon our own energetic field that can actually contribute and amplify what we're actually thinking and feeling. So let's go ahead and do the clearing. I'm going to walk you through this. If you have not done this before, don't worry. It's not like you're going to get anything wrong. Okay. But again, if you need to rewatch this later on, it's going to be available on my social media. Okay. So I'm going to be explaining where we're going. So don't, again, you're not going to get it wrong. So just follow along, and I want you to see, sense, and feel through your body as we're doing the clearing together. Okay. So first things first, go ahead and close your eyes. That brings your attention inward. An easy breath in and out longer on the exhale. It slows your heart rate down and signals your body that you're safe. Relaxing your shoulders, your neck, and your jaw. From the base of your spine, so right at your tailbone, imagine like you're sending a grounding cord going down into the center of the earth. And once you get there, go ahead and you can imagine like you're even hooking into the center of the earth if you feel like you need to do that. Good. Now bringing your awareness to the bottoms of your feet Imagine tree roots going down into the center of the earth. I'm sorry, into the earth, doesn't have to be the center, wrapping around the sides of the earth. And then you're absorbing the earth's energy coming through those roots, going up through the bottoms of your feet, and then going up past your lower legs, your upper legs, hips, meeting at the grounding cord, and then circling back down. So if you can, see, sense, and feel circulation going through the lower half of your body. And then I want you to go to the root chakra. So right at where your lower bladder, the perineal area is, imagine like you're in the center of an onion, and you know how an onion has different layers. So go out to the 30th layer, and you're going to pull that 30th layer into the center and release. And that's just going to go down the grounding cord. So what we're doing here is we're just taking in those worries, those concerns, anxieties, some fears, and we're dropping that down the grounding cord. So those 3 steps is where we get really ultra grounded to the earth's energy. And so now we're going to connect to universal energy. So bringing your awareness way above the crown of your head, reaching through to the center of the universe, you're going to pull universal energy down, and you're going to come to what's called your stack of creative rings that are sitting above the crown of your head. And each and every one of you have a different set number of rings. So just if you have a question on how many you have, then you can always message me. But these represent your goals, dreams, desires, intentions, the things that you came here to create. So we're recalibrating each of those rings to your highest and best interest with universal energy, right? Because if you're in anxiety, you cannot be in creation mode where you're creating your life or you're manifesting things. It's just not going to happen. So when we infuse these rings with universal energy, we're basically breathing life again into the things that you want to do. So that universal energy then comes down to the top of your head, the crown chakra. So go out to the 3rd layer, and we're going to pull that in. We're going to clear needing permission to feel safe in our bodies. Right, so we're going to pull that into the center and release. Good. Excellent. And I want you to go out to the 3rd layer again. We're going to pull that in. Here's what's called a control being. So this is one of the tools of the darker energies that can really make us either feel divided, separated from source even, and that can also make us feel separate from others, right? We see a lot of separation going on right now. So as we bring that 3rd layer into the center, we're going to use a slightly different technique. I want you to insert what's called a black flame right at the crown, the center of the crown chakra, and imagine burning, dissolving that control being energy. So do this until it feels complete for you. And usually when I'm doing this in a group or for a private client, you can always feel a little bit of a shift in the energy. And sometimes for a client, it can actually look like a different change in the color to their aura. So burn through and dissolve right here at the crown. And then come down to the 3rd eye, so center of the head. And we're going to pull in the 3rd layer, but here we're clearing through different mindsets, beliefs, and thoughts. So things such as I'm not lovable, I'm not worthy or deserving of the things that I want in my life. If I don't focus on problems, I'm not going to be able to keep myself safe. I'm not supported. I'm on my own. There's no one here to back me up. There's a lot of things here around support that I'm picking up on. So pull that 3rd layer into the center. And we're going to just drop that down to the grounding cord. So basically, that goes down the pranic channel and then down into, so at the vertebrae, and that goes down into the grounding cord. Good. All right, so we're going to pull in a fear entity or collective fear consciousness here. So pull in at the 25th layer at the third eye to the center. And we're going to do the same thing also here. So let's go ahead and insert a black flame here at the center of the head, and then we're going to burn and dissolve through that. There's actually more than one here that I'm picking up on. So if you're watching this on the replay, because what I'm doing here is I'm tuning into everyone collectively, even if you were not able to stay on, because I know my my lives tend to be a little bit longer. So burn through, dissolve. There's three of these fear energies here at the third eye. So burn, dissolve through that. Good. And now we're going to go down to the throat. So third layer again. So fear of speaking up. So speaking your truth, your, what you believe in, your principles. There's a lot of fear around that just because of all the censorship that we've also been seeing, the fact checking, all of that. And it doesn't matter, if you're picking sides, it really doesn't matter. So pull in that third layer to the center, release. So if you can't speak up for yourself, it's really hard to be authentic, right? If you feel like you can't speak up just because you're afraid, you're never really going to fully be yourself. You're always going to be hiding, right? There's a lot of people who are hiding. So pull that in from the third layer to the center and release. Good. And there's also at the third layer a lot of anger at the throat. So pull that in. Okay, that's also because there's a controlled being here also. So pull that in and then release. So that control energy, again, let's pull that in from the third layer at the throat and then insert a black flame here. So burn and dissolve that energy. You might even notice a shift in how your throat feels. A lot of times people might feel like really constricted at the throat. They might get sore throats a lot if they've had a hard time speaking up, which can create a lot of anxiety when you want to be able to express yourself fully and you can't. And whether that's either someone telling you that you can't or whether that's you thinking that you can't. Okay, so burning through that control energy at the throat. And then let's also pull in that fear entity here at the throat. So 25th layer into the center. And black flame again, go ahead and burn, dissolve through that at the throat. I'm feeling like a lump in my throat right now too. It's really interesting. The throat chakra is really being affected a lot right now. Okay, so going down then to the heart. Okay, so at the heart center, it's a lot of self-judgment. So third layer, pull that in. And you might even have an idea of what you might be judging yourself for, right? Which can cause a lot of anxiety, especially if we were constantly beating ourselves up. So at the heart, pull in that third layer. And we're just going to drop that down the pranic channel into the grounding cord. So just see, sense, and feel in your body as with your intention, you're moving that down and out, right? The earth can transmute that particular energy. There's also the fear of vulnerability in the heart. So if you're just coming on now, I'm tuning to everyone who's coming on, even if you're not able to stay on. And again, this video is going to be here for replay. So feel free to do the whole thing in its entirety. So at the third layer at the heart, pull in that fear of vulnerability, right? Where we might just get anxious because we don't want to take a risk, or maybe we want to take a risk, for something that we want, but we're just afraid we're not going to get it, or we're afraid of what other people are going to think, or if we're going to get rejected or abandoned, right? So pull in that third layer at the heart to the center and release. Good. 15th layer at the heart, pull that in. This is that 1% energy. Another term I use for it is collective control consciousness. So, when we feel like we're being controlled, we feel like we can't be ourselves. We feel like we can't really open our heart because of fear of being hurt. Okay, so pulling that energy in. And again, we're going to insert a black flame here to burn and dissolve this energy. So just go ahead and focus. If you need to, close your eyes and burn and dissolve that. I'm already feeling almost like a flutter. Don't worry, it's not an arrhythmia. So just burn and dissolve that. And I'm feeling that in my shoulder blades too. Good. Moving down to the solar plexus. So the stomach area. Okay. So here we're going to pull in martyr energy. So that's that whole the whole like where you're giving of yourself a little bit too much, that self-sacrifice to a fault, right? Where you're depleting your energy. So pull in that energy here to the center and release. So going down into the grounding cord. And again, see, sense, and feel. Third layer again, any powerlessness. So pull that in at the solar plexus to the center and release. Good. Excellent. Yeah, because if you feel powerless or you feel like you don't have control over your life, it's going to be really, really, that can make you not only anxious, but it's going to be really hard to move into creation mode, right? So let's go down then to the sacral. So we're in between the navel and hips, and pull in that second layer with the anger. It's interesting when we have anxiety, but we can also feel anger at the same time. They're two very, very distinct energies, but both anger and fear will, again, they'll both unground you, but they will also lower your vibration. So you're going to feel heavier and denser. So go ahead and pull that in and then drop it down. It's a lot of anger. A lot of anger. Okay, good. And then we're going to pull in shame. So third layer, we're going to pull that in. I'm getting like 75% on that. So shame is what can really hold us back too from even trying to improve ourselves, to be seen or be heard. If we have a lot of shame, it's going to be really anxiety producing, right? Because that's when we use our imagination in a negative way. So let's pull that into the center and release. Good. Excellent. Okay, so then going down to the root, so we're back at that perineal area. We're going to pull in a number of fears, right? These are the fears that can be behind the normal chronic anxiety that we might feel. So at the root chakra, we're going to pull in that third layer. So the fear, okay, so there's a number of fears here that I'm picking up on. So we've got fear of loss. That's a big one. Fear of speaking up, fear of rejection, fear of abandonment, fear of lack of support, fear of not having enough to survive, fear of not being good enough or having enough value. Okay, so we're going to start with that. That's a lot already. Oh, the fear of not feeling safe. Okay, so we're going to pull that into the center. And then we're going to drop it down the grounding cord. So just again, see, sense, and feel. And I already felt a whole like lifting in my stomach. So sending that down the grounding cord. And also too, we're going to pull in the third layer here at the root with some victim energy. So if you ever have felt like you were victimized in the past, it doesn't matter by who that is, that can produce anxiety, because usually if it's something that's unhealed, we're going to be facing that again at some point. And then that victimhood can be triggered and can cause anxiety. So we're going to pull that in and then release down the grounding cord. So if you're just joining now, it's okay. Just hop on in and follow along. The replay is going to be on here, so you can always follow. Start at the beginning again, okay? And then it's going to come up the front. Okay, we're gonna bring that universal and earth's energy coming up the front of the spine. So going past your sacral, solar plexus, heart, throat, third eye, crown, your creative rings. And like paint over a balloon, it's going to come up and over the field and immersing through all the layers of the aura. Okay, coming down past your legs and attaching at the grounding cord below your feet. Okay, really good. Okay, so now the circle of reciprocity, we're going to take the energies of your heart, throat, third eye, crown, and rings. We're going to compress that, and it's going to go through the right shoulder into the right arm. Okay, so as we're into the right arm, imagine like you're cleaning out the pipes here on the right side. Okay, anxiety can prevent you from acting, executing, doing the things that you actually want to do. So we're going to pull that through the right arm to the right wrist, fingertips together like you're holding a softball if you need to. And that energy is going to go through the right fingertips and palm over to the left side, all the way through that left arm. Okay, so that's coming up. Really good. Up into the left shoulder, dropping down into the chest, wrapping around the front and back of the heart. Opening up that heart to feel grateful for anything and everything that you currently have, right? Because when you feel gratitude for just even being able to sit here with yourself and be able to get yourself calm and grounded, other things too might start to come up for you that you might be grateful for, but you can't be grateful and fearful at the same time. So wrapping around the front and back of the heart, coming up, wrapping around the front and back of the throat. So that way you can start to speak much more kindly to yourself, where you can speak things into existence that's going to be positive for you instead of the other way around. That energy is moving up, wrapping around the front and back of the third eye, where you can merely see those anxious thoughts, those anxieties, just passing on by, right? You don't have to believe everything that you think. Just because it's in your mind does not mean that it's true. So you can just become the observer. That energy now comes up through the crown and then again up and over the field. Okay, so this is where now your aura is much more clear. You might even notice how you feel right now, probably a little bit calmer, more grounded. Okay, and I'm going to check in with a couple other energies now. So now that we've cleared through the chakras with those more of those emotional energies, so let's see. Let's see if there's any other collective fear consciousness or fear entities. At the root, please go out to the 25th layer. There's 5. So we're going to bring that into the center. Hello. Thank you for joining. Okay, so we're going to bring that into the center. And we're going to insert a black flame here, and we're just going to go ahead and burn and dissolve through that. Burn and dissolve through those energies. And again, you might notice a certain sensation. So every time we're doing this, it's always a good idea to practice seeing, sensing, and feeling, right? Because you can validate the work that you're doing because you're the one who's actually doing this. So burn and dissolve through that at the root chakra. Good. And then we're going to go ahead and there's more. So at the solar plexus, I want you to pull in. Okay, so there's two things here. Pull in the 25th layer to the center. There's some more fear entities here. So go ahead and put a black flame there, insert, and burn and dissolve. Okay, excellent. And then pull in the third layer at the solar plexus. There's a control. There's a control being here too. So insert a black flame, burn and dissolve through that. Excellent. Okay, that one seemed a little bit easier. So from here, we're going to check in with energetic cords. Okay, so you have, for those who are watching or watching on the replay, there's 10. So 5 at the root. And with this, you're not going to cut cords. We're going to deplug. So imagine like you're taking a plug out of the wall socket, releasing and sending it back to who they belong to. So 5 at the root. So go ahead and deplug, release, send back. And if you ever need help with this or you want me to check in with this, you can always message me too. There's 3 at the solar plexus, which I find to be interesting. That just basically means someone's trying to get you to do what they want you to do, right? So pull, deplug, then pulling those out of the solar plexus, release, sending back, okay? And there's 2 at the third eye. So again, deplug at the third eye, like you're taking the plugs out of the wall socket, release, send it back. And notice how you feel. Okay, so again, throughout these guided clearings, you're just seeing, sensing, feeling in your body to see what that looks and feels like. Okay, so let me know. You can comment, even if you're watching this on the replay, how you feel afterwards. And thank you for those who are joining. I know it's kind of hard to stay on for the whole thing, but I do have an upcoming group program. Okay, that is that's going to be starting October 17. The first clearing is going to be on the 18th, and so there's going to be 12 clearings in total, 3 a week for 4 weeks. So it's going to end in plenty of time before the holidays start. So that's the reason why I timed it this way. And it's this is the first time I'm doing this. So I have an excellent price on it that is way less than the cost of one private session for me. But I'll be tuning into the group in present time. So it's going to be live, but all of the clearings will be recorded in case you can't make it, or you got other obligations or work. And then also a private Facebook group. I have a bonus PDF, a Q&A at the end. So it's a lot of really great information. I'll also be giving suggestions for the group to facilitate your own healing, whatever it is that your intentions are for the program. So if you have questions on that, reach out to me, but it's now on my site and under group programs, it's the only one that's there. So let me know if you have any questions on that too. Okay. And so thank you for joining or watching on the replay, and I will see you next week. Bye now.